Hey everyone. So today I'm going to record a couple of videos recording what we covered last week in discussion. And I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. One, so that you guys have an additional resource that you guys can um, have at your disposal. And two, I did forget a couple of things. I think just because like I was in a rush and I wanted to make sure that I got the basics down. But like most of them are quality of life improvements and sort of just like, make your workflow more efficient, saves a couple seconds here and there. So yeah. And before we get started, if you do want to like follow along, that's great. In fact, I highly recommend that you do. And also, you should also have a mouse because doing this on a trackpad is a nightmare, and I don't recommend that at all. So let's get started. So first, we talked about navigation, and that's sort of how you move around in this workspace. And the workspace is basically like this plane where you can drag objects on and all that stuff. But we'll cover that later when we get to it. So first, what I'm doing right now, sort of moving my workspace, or not moving, but changing my angle. I'm holding right click, and you can just like whenever you're happy, like let's say I'm happy with this, you can just let go. If you like a more like a fixed view where it's more precise, you can click these faces. So you can click a face, an edge, or a corner, and you'll get the corresponding view. Personally, I don't like the cube. Maybe it's just because I like having more control, but it's an option for you guys. There's also the home view, which is this. If you're like in some wonky view, right? Just click this guy, bam, you're back. Also, I remember a number of you guys were asking, like, how do I actually move my point of view? Like, let's say I'm focused here, right? But I want to, like, move over here. You have to hold the wheel button and then just drag. Like, that'll actually, like, that'll physically move you, while this will, like, just change your perspective. Okay, so we covered the home button. This is called fit to view, which I didn't cover, and I think for good reason, because I don't find it too useful. Let's say I have two shapes, they're in opposite corners. I zoom all the way in, fit to view, puts all my shapes in view. I don't really like this because I don't really, well, to be honest, I don't really like the cube and all that. Maybe just because I like having more control. Like I could just always zoom out instead of doing this. But if you do like these buttons more, then be my guest, right? So like if they're in smaller, like I just did, it'll make it how much you zoom in will be a rate like the ratio will increase or decrease depending on how close all your objects are, right? If I have like a cube here, do fit to view. There. See, it's like more skewed. All right, that's fit to view. Oh, right. And instead of holding the wheel that moves you, you can scroll with it to zoom in and out, or you have these two buttons that manually allows you to zoom in and out. And then the last guy on this left side here, it it's a button that switches your view. Like here, it actually be better if I draw or drag a couple shapes. So I click the button and you can see my views, like my workspace is like slanted. Like these two lines here aren't parallel anymore. And if I go back to it, you get like this. This is the default one, which personally I find much more like easier on the eyes, more intuitive. Like this is like it's everything's in perspective, and I don't really like that because like these grid lines are smaller than those over here. So, but whatever floats your boat, right? So let's get rid of these shapes, and then okay, let's talk about settings here too. So there's I recommend you keep these on. You'd be a maniac if you didn't. Like if I just turn these off. No, well the grid, yeah, well yeah, please don't. Anyways, your zoom speed, If you don't like where it's at, you can always change it. Um, for these, I think if you like, you can make it shorter, maybe like 100, because we did talk about how our design constraint is 25 by 25 by 25 millimeters, that is. So don't change these units, please. Whoops, I made a mistake. Nice. All right. So yeah, if you want like this, maybe like a smaller workspace, up to you. Feel free to change it here. And I think, yeah, the last thing to talk about navigation would be the snap grid, and I'd say this is pretty important. So, actually, there's one more thing after that, but the snap grid. So if I'm holding left click, right, on my shape and dragging it, and that's what allows me to move it horizontally, the X or the Y. And you can see how it moves in increments of 1, right? You see 0, 1, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's because my snap grid is 1 right now. If I made it 5, yeah, let's do 5. I like 5 better, right? 5, 10, 15. You get the idea. I think 1's a good base. It's just like a good all-rounder. If you're trying to, if you find 1 too like too clicky, maybe go 5. You can do an entire like brick grid if you want. But yeah, I don't recommend that you turn this off, however. You'd be a madman if you like it off. And then I think this is worth mentioning, but it could be useful depending on the person. So this guy, you see this workspace right here, or work plane. Let's say you don't like it. I'm gonna click this guy, and so you see how it's like, you see the arrow? If I want the work plane on a specific face of an object, I can highlight that side and click it, and bam. So you might be wondering, what does this do? Well, like, it essentially treats this as a workspace now, right? So like, let's do, yeah, it'd be like this is your workspace, right? It like imagines that this is the ground. But in reality, if you go back, see how it's like sideways? But like if you tilt this, like how I got before, it thinks like, yeah, this is the ground. And you can move it in relation if you want to like work only sideways, might be for you. If you don't like this, or like let's say you're in this and you want to get out, see how like the square is, normal to what, or parallel to what the workspace was, just click it and then bam, you're back here. So yeah, I think that's all for navigation.